In about 10 days. You don't need to have money in the bank to get money from a bank. To get the loan you want, call Advanta at 1-800-550-4151. You'll see they're different. Hey, they don't keep bankers' hours either.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
Scenes from St. Paul, Minnesota, where temperatures are in the single digits, and light snow is beginning to fall again today across much of the eastern part of Minnesota. That same system, by the way, is bringing more snow into the mid-Atlantic right now. There's been some moderate snow around Washington and Baltimore, and some light snow now beginning to fall around New York City. Good morning and welcome to Weather Center. I'm Will Annan.
And I'm Cheryl Lemke. Thanks for joining us. And right now we've been seeing some very wintry conditions, as you were mentioning, and conditions are going to be going downhill across many big cities across the Northeast as the day continues to unfold. And these are scenes now from the nation's capital where snow has moved across the area. So far, D.C. has picked up about an inch or two of snow. But more is possible as the snow eventually, though, will turn over to rain later today. So, boy, kind of an ugly weather pattern with all that wintry weather now advancing across the northeastern corridor. Let's check out our weather map, and you can see exactly the components making up this winter mess. We have ample low-level moisture flowing up from the south, our complex storm system moving in from the west, a lot of cold air trapped at the surface, the perfect makings for a major winter event. And boy, we've been dealing with the ice and the snow over the last several hours. And the snow is really picking up in intensity. A large band of moderate to occasionally heavy snow around Johnstown, Middletown, Pennsylvania, and Willow Grove onto Philadelphia. And the snow is coming down very hard right now, too, for Washington, D.C., and likewise for the Baltimore area. So a very wintry scenario. Speaking of snow, we've watched more snow, too, coming in across Ohio, including the Cleveland area. And with me this morning, we have our very own Jim Cantori from Cleveland. Good morning, Jim. What's the latest from Cleveland?
Well, sure, we got about a half inch of snow. Temperatures climbing into the upper teens now, so that's some good news. But the snow continues at a steady rate to come on down here. We've just heard some of the schools are actually going to let out early. Even the middle and high schools letting out at about 12:30 this afternoon. A lot of the daycares and kindergartens that were scheduled for this afternoon, not only here in the city of Cleveland, but also in some of the suburbs, have been canceled as a result of the weather. So they do expect things to go downhill. The roads are getting a little sticky, a little sloppy. Even with the salt that's being spread on it, they're still kind of getting mushy out there. So it should be an interesting rush hour for you this evening. Other than that, it's just status quo. Winter continues here in Cleveland. After we deal with this mess, it's going to be cold for the next several days. So looks like a cold, wintry weekend setting up here for the Cleveland lakefront. We will keep you posted. We're going to have more live shots starting at 4 o'clock Eastern time this afternoon. We'll let you know how the rush hour is faring here in Cleveland. And of course, Cheryl, as we've been mentioning, like last time when I was in Chicago and this time when I'm in Cleveland, it's not only this area that's getting affected, but really a large area here in the upper Midwest, and as you've been mentioning, even the mid-Atlantic states. We'll keep you posted right here from the Cleveland Lakefront. Back to you.
Thanks, Jim. Again, that was Jim Cantori reporting live from Cleveland. As Jim was mentioning, a large area is seeing that wintry mixture right now, so it's a very large, encompassing winter storm that's affecting a large part of the eastern half of the country. Now, something else that we've been dealing with today has been the freezing rain. And we're still seeing quite a bit of freezing rain, especially right across the Ohio River, which does include some of you in around the Louisville area and Paducah, Kentucky. We've had reports of some moderate to occasionally heavy freezing rain, and that is making for some very treacherous roadways. And at least for a while now, we've had reports of some road closures right across the Western Kentucky Parkway. Again, just outside the Paducah area and then just south and east of Louisville. So be extra careful, at least for the next few hours or so. Eventually, though, as the afternoon continues to unfold, we'll watch some milder air coming up from the south. So some of this will eventually turn over to a rain event. But at least for the next few hours, we'll still have to deal with more freezing rain across the state of Kentucky. Now, for the northeast here, too, some rapidly changing weather because currently we have some snow for New York City. That snow will eventually work over towards Providence and Hartford, and eventually come later this afternoon, some snows, too, for Boston. It will start off initially as snow, then turn over for a brief spell to some freezing rain and sleet, and then before the day is over, turn over to pure rain. So a lot of changes coming in, a very variable weather pattern through the area. Meanwhile, though, still reports of some freezing rain through the Ohio Valley. Turning over to snow, though, the farther north that you go. And we have a band of snow right now clipping across Toledo and moving over towards Cleveland. And this is being caused by our secondary storm system sweeping in across the heartland. So, again, making for some very nasty conditions for traveling. If you're heading off to work or school or just plain running errands today, be really, really careful. Right now we see the snow enveloping the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Snow's back towards La Crosse and spreading over through Chicago as well. Throughout the day today, we'll generally have a band of about 3 to about 4 inches of snow for many spots. Heavier snows, though, from Indianapolis spreading over towards Erie, Pennsylvania, Binghamton, Ithaca, New York. You could really get hammered, too, by some very heavy snowfall, perhaps shoveling out from nearly 6 inches by tonight. Another key aspect of this winter storm is the cold weather. Right now, it's 16 for Chicago and 5 for Green Bay. You factor in the winds, though, and we are still dealing with very dangerously cold wind chills throughout the northern plain states. And even the Northeast, very uncomfortable this morning. Temperature right now 20 for Pittsburgh, 33 for Elkins. Again, with the winds, though, factor in, it feels much, much colder. So please bundle up very warmly if you're going to be venturing outside today. Let's check out the weather now across the south and the western part of the country. And with more details, here's Will.
Thanks a lot, Cheryl. Those Santa Ana winds are back in Southern California, and in the valley locations, it is dense fog. We'll have more on that coming up in just a moment. But first, more on the rain across the Mid-South this morning. This is the story as you take a look at the Deep South, where it's going to be much, much colder tomorrow. The rainfall will be ending from west to east, but once again, if you live around Atlanta, Chattanooga, Birmingham, Montgomery, and Jackson back towards Little Rock, wait until tomorrow with those strong northerly winds. It is really going to be a raw day. Right now we're looking at the bulk of the precipitation over much of the Mid-South, beginning to spread down towards the north. Not a big deal again across much of Tennessee, Alabama, also into Georgia, and back over towards parts of Mississippi as well. It is warm enough here for all rain, and by this time tomorrow, we could be looking at some stronger thunderstorms in central and northwestern Florida, maybe reaching the Miami area very, very late in the day. I'll show you what's going on over the Mid-South right now. We can see we've got a strong flow coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. Again, abundant moisture. With a weak disturbance coming out of Texas, could spell some troubles a little bit later on this afternoon if you live around Houston, Lake Charles, maybe right around Lafayette as well. The temperatures right now 70 degrees in New Orleans, 69 in Houston, and you can see we're looking at more 70s in Florida too. But this is going to be our problem spot, Texas, Louisiana this afternoon. Dew points very, very high. Houston right now 66 degrees and climbing. Same thing around New Orleans. And with that disturbance beginning to roll through this afternoon, if you live around Houston and Galveston and much of the state of Louisiana, strong to severe thunderstorms may be in the cards a little bit later on. So travelers along I-20 and also I-10 could be looking at some very, very heavy thunderstorms, at least some very heavy rainfall too, could be developing right through later on this afternoon. And because of that factor, and because of some heavier rains during the last 24 hours, flood watches have gone into effect where you see the darker green. That does include much of the northwestern half of Mississippi, a small chunk of northeastern Louisiana, and also the small corner of the southeastern areas of the state of Arkansas. Take a look at the rainfall right now. Not too much beginning to build up now throughout Louisiana, eastern Texas. That will change a little bit later on. And the farther north and east you go, it's just plain rain at this time. Atlanta back to Birmingham to around Tupelo, Mississippi. The west coast, well, take a look at this. You're looking at
and inspire.